March 15, 1987, Madrid, Spain. A nurse named Inez walked into the maternity ward at San Ramon Hospital and saw a mother screaming. The woman had just given birth to a healthy baby girl. The doctors told her the child died during delivery. But Inez had seen the infant, pink, breathing, wrapped in a blue blanket and handed to a couple waiting in the corridor. The mother begged to see the body. The hospital refused. No funeral, no death certificate, just a bill for the delivery and a vague promise that the body had been disposed of according to procedure. The woman left the hospital empty-handed, broken, convinced her daughter was dead. Inez knew the truth. The baby was alive, sold. For approximately 200,000 pesetas, roughly $1,500. The couple who received her had been waiting for months, approved by the church, vetted by doctors, declared suitable to raise a child. They walked out of the hospital believing they had legally adopted an orphan whose birth mother had abandoned her. Both families were lied to, one family destroyed, one family built on a lie, and in between them, a network of doctors, nurses, priests, and officials who had been stealing babies for nearly 50 years. This was not an isolated incident. This was systematic, industrial, a machine that ran from the final days of the Spanish Civil War in 1939 through the early 1990s, operating in dozens of hospitals across Spain, protected by the Catholic Church, enabled by Franco's regime, and continued long after democracy returned. By the time the truth began surfacing in 2010, an estimated 300,000 babies had been stolen. Inez knew all of this. She had participated. For 15 years, she had watched infants disappear. She had lied to mothers. She had forged documents. And every day she faced the same question that now sits in front of you. If exposing the truth would destroy thousands of families who believed they had done nothing wrong, should you stay silent? This is the story of what happened when the lies finally cracked open, when the stolen children began searching for their real mothers, and when Spain had to choose between justice and the fragile peace of families built on stolen lives. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell the stories that force us to confront the hardest questions about morality, justice, and the choices ordinary people make when caught inside systems designed to destroy truth. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. To understand how this happened, you need to go back to 1939, to the end of the Spanish Civil War. Generalissimo Francisco Franco had won. The Republicans, the Socialists, the Anarchists, the regional separatists, all defeated. Franco declared victory not just militarily but morally. He announced that Spain would be purified, cleansed, rebuilt according to Catholic nationalist principles. But there was a problem. Hundreds of thousands of Republican women remained in Spain, women who had supported the wrong side, women whose husbands had been executed or disappeared, women whose children, Franco believed, would grow up to be enemies of the state. A psychiatrist named Antonio Vallejo Nájera proposed a solution. He published studies claiming that Marxism was a mental illness, that Republican women were genetically inferior, that their children would inherit their defects unless removed and raised in proper Catholic households. His writings were not fringe theories. They were official state policy. Vallejo Nájera wrote in a 1939 report submitted to Franco's government. The removal of children from red families is not only a political necessity, but a biological one. These children, if left with their mothers, will perpetuate the mental and moral defects of Marxism. Franco agreed. A network was established. Hospitals, orphanages, convents. Republican women who gave birth in prison had their children seized immediately. No explanation, no paperwork. The infants were declared orphans and placed with families loyal to the regime. The mothers were told their babies had died. Some were shown small coffins supposedly containing the bodies. The coffins were never opened. Later investigations would reveal many contained stones. This was legal, sanctioned, documented in state archives. Between 1939 and 1945, approximately 30,000 children were taken under this program. But then something unexpected happened. The program did not stop when Franco's purge ended. It evolved. By the 1950s, the ideological justification faded, but the infrastructure remained. Hospitals still had the paperwork. Doctors still had the connections. The Catholic Church still controlled adoption networks. And a new market emerged. Wealthy Spanish families, desperate children, unable to conceive, willing to pay. The system adapted. It was no longer about punishing Republicans. It was about profit and social engineering. Doctors identified unsuitable mothers, unmarried women, poor women, women deemed morally unfit by priests or social workers, and their babies were marked. When the child was born, a simple switch occurred. The real baby was handed to a waiting adoptive family. The mother was told her child had died. A fake death certificate was produced. The hospital records were altered. No one questioned it. In Franco's Spain, the church and the state were inseparable. If a priest said a woman was unfit to raise a child, that was sufficient. If a doctor declared an infant dead, no autopsy was required. The system relied on absolute trust in authority, and for decades, that trust was unshakable. Dr. Eduardo Vela ran one of the largest operations. Based in Madrid, he worked at multiple hospitals over a 40-year career. Former nurses estimate he personally facilitated the theft of thousands of babies. His method was efficient. When a target mother gave birth, Vela would take the infant immediately, claiming medical complications required the child to be placed in an incubator. Hours later, he would return and inform the mother that the baby had died. He never showed them the body. He explained that viewing a deceased infant was traumatic and unnecessary. Most mothers, exhausted from labor, grieving, trusted him. Some demanded to see their child. Vela had a solution for that too. He kept several frozen infant corpses in the hospital morgue. When a mother insisted on seeing the body, he would present one of the frozen infants, claiming it was hers. The mother, seeing a dead baby, accepted the loss. Vela died in 2009, 1 year before the scandal broke publicly. He was never prosecuted. He never confessed. But former colleagues later testified that he openly discussed the practice, justifying it by claiming he was saving children from lives of poverty and placing them in homes where they would be loved and provided for. Inés, the nurse from San Ramon Hospital, worked under Vela for 15 years. In interviews conducted decades later, she described the routine. We knew which mothers were marked. Sometimes it was written on the chart. Sometimes the doctor would just nod when we asked. We would prepare 2 sets of paperwork, one for the real parents, one for the birth mother. It became normal. We stopped thinking about it. But Inés did think about it. On March 15, 1987, after watching that mother scream in the delivery room, after seeing the baby handed to strangers in the corridor, she went home and wrote everything down. Names, dates, families. She folded the pages and hid them in a box under her bed. She did not go to the police. She did not confront Vela. She went back to work the next day and continued participating in the system. Why? She later explained, if I reported it, what would happen? The families who adopted those children, they believed they had done everything legally. The church approved them. The state certified them. If I exposed it, I would destroy those families. The children would learn their entire lives were lies. And the birth mothers? Most of them had moved on. They grieved, they rebuilt their lives. Telling them their children were alive but unreachable, how's that mercy? This is the core of the dilemma. Not whether the system was evil, it clearly was, but what to do once you discover you are inside it. Inés was not a monster. She was a nurse who wanted to help people. She had participated in something horrific because it was normalized, because everyone around her accepted it, because questioning it meant questioning everything she believed about her country, her church, her profession. And when she finally realized the truth, exposing it required destroying not just the perpetrators, but the victims as well. The adoptive families, the children, even the birth mothers who had spent decades believing their grief was over. So she stayed silent for 23 more years. By 1975, Francisco Franco was dead. Spain transitioned to democracy. The new government, desperate to avoid reopening Civil War wounds, enacted what historians call the Pact of Forgetting. All crimes committed during the Franco era were amnestied. No prosecutions, no investigations. The country agreed to move forward without looking back. This pact was pragmatic. It prevented civil conflict. It allowed Spain to modernize rapidly, but it also meant that the baby-stealing network continued operating in plain sight. Democracy changed nothing for the doctors and priests running the scheme. They had not been punished under Franco. They would not be punished under democracy. The system finally began collapsing in the late 1980s, not because of moral awakening, but because of technology. DNA testing became affordable. Adopted children, now adults, began searching for their biological parents. Some discovered discrepancies: birth certificates that did not match hospital records, death certificates with no corresponding burial plots, adoption papers with forged signatures. In 2001, a woman named Maria Jose Rodriguez filed a lawsuit. She had been adopted in 1964. Her adoptive parents told her the truth on their deathbeds. She had been purchased from a hospital in Barcelona. They believed it was legal. They had paid a priest. They had signed papers. They thought they were saving an orphan. Maria spent 9 years searching for her biological mother. She found her in 2010, living in a small village outside Madrid. The mother, whose name was Carmen, had been 19 years old when she gave birth, unmarried. The hospital told her the baby died within hours. Carmen had grieved for 46 years. When Maria appeared at her door with DNA results proving they were related, Carmen collapsed. She later described the moment. "I thought I was seeing a ghost. I had mourned her. I had visited her grave, a grave with no body. And now she was standing in front of me, alive, asking why I abandoned her. I never abandoned her. They stole her." Maria's case broke open. Journalists began investigating. Within months, hundreds of similar stories surfaced. Then thousands. Support groups formed. UNADIR, an association for stolen babies, was founded in 2010. Within 1 year, it registered over 15,000 cases. By 2015, the number exceeded 300,000. The Spanish government launched investigations. Exhumations of supposed infant graves revealed many were empty or contained animal bones. Hospital records were reviewed and found to contain systematic falsifications. Adoption agencies were audited and discovered to have no documentation for thousands of placements. The Catholic Church initially denied involvement, then admitted that some priests may have acted inappropriately, then refused to open its archives. And then came the impossible question: what now? 300,000 people were involved. Not all of them knew. Many adoptive families genuinely believed they had followed legal procedures. Many adopted children were now in their 60s and 70s, having lived entire lives with the families who raised them. Many birth mothers had remarried, had other children, and never told anyone about the baby they lost decades ago. Opening the truth meant detonating a bomb under hundreds of thousands of families simultaneously. On one side, justice. The birth mothers deserved to know their children had not died. The stolen children deserved to know their real origins. The perpetrators, the few still alive, deserved prosecution. The system that enabled this for 50 years deserved exposure and condemnation. On the other side, mercy. The adoptive families who believed they had done nothing wrong. The children who would learn their entire identities were fabricated. The birth mothers who might not want their carefully rebuilt lives shattered by a truth they had spent decades trying to forget. What would you do? The Spanish government chose a middle path. It acknowledged the crime. It opened a DNA database. It allowed victims to file civil suits. But it did not prosecute anyone. The Pact of Forgetting, technically ended in 2007, was quietly extended. Officials explained that most perpetrators were dead. Those still alive were too old to stand trial. Prosecuting them would require prosecuting the church, the state, the medical establishment, essentially admitting that the entire country had been complicit. This decision enraged victims. Thousands protested. They demanded trials. They demanded the church open its records. They demanded exhumations. They demanded that adoptive families be forced to submit DNA samples. But the government refused. The reasoning was familiar. Reopening these wounds would tear the country apart. Spain had spent 40 years building a stable democracy. Destroying that for the sake of justice in cases where most perpetrators were already dead seemed, to officials, like choosing vengeance over peace. The victims disagreed. Maria Jose Rodriguez said in a 2012 interview, They keep saying we need to move on, that we need to forgive, that we need to think about the families. But what about us? We are the families too. We were stolen, our mothers were lied to, and the people who did this died rich and respected. Where is the justice in that? She was right. Eduardo Vela, the doctor who ran the Madrid network, died with honors. His obituary in El País described him as a dedicated physician who delivered thousands of healthy babies. No mention of theft, no mention of lies. His family held a funeral mass at a prominent Madrid cathedral. Dozens of families he had helped adopt children attended and spoke of his kindness. Those families did not know. They still do not know. Their children, now adults, might be in the DNA database, searching for biological parents. Or they might have chosen not to look, preferring the comfort of the only family they have ever known. Inez, the nurse who hid her notes under the bed in 1987, came forward in 2011. She testified before a judge. She named names. She provided dates. She described procedures. She handed over the pages she had written 24 years earlier. The prosecutor asked her why she waited so long. She said, "I was afraid, and I did not know if exposing it would help anyone or just spread the pain to more people. I am still not sure. Some of the mothers I contacted were grateful. Some were angry that I reminded them. Some begged me never to contact them again. I do not know if I did the right thing." Her testimony led to the opening of 14 criminal cases. All 14 were eventually dismissed. Statute of limitations, insufficient evidence, defendants too ill to stand trial. By 2018, every case was closed. Not a single person was convicted. The DNA database remains open. As of 2023, it contains over 20,000 profiles. Approximately 2,000 matches have been confirmed. 2,000 families reunited. 2,000 truths revealed. That leaves 298,000 still searching, or choosing not to search. 2,000 families reunited. But reunion is not the same as resolution. In 2014, a woman named Laura Hernandez found her biological mother through the DNA database. Laura was 52 years old. She had been raised in Barcelona by a wealthy family. Her adoptive parents had died years earlier, never telling her she was adopted. She only discovered the truth when sorting through their papers and finding an envelope marked, "Laura's adoption, private." Inside were letters between her adoptive father and a priest named Father Gomez. The letters discussed payment. They discussed timing. They discussed how to handle paperwork. The final letter, dated June 1962, confirmed that the child has been secured and provided instructions for picking her up from a hospital in Valencia. Laura submitted her DNA. 3 months later, she received a match. Her biological mother was alive, living in a small town 2 hours from Barcelona. Her name was Sofia Martinez. She was 71 years old. She had never married. She had no other children. Laura wrote her a letter. She explained who she was. She included a copy of the DNA results. She asked if Sofia wanted to meet. Sofia's response arrived 2 weeks later. One sentence. "I do not know who you are and I do not wish to be contacted again." Laura tried again. She called. She sent photographs. She sent medical records proving they shared the same rare blood type. Sofia never responded. Laura later learned through a cousin that Sofia had spent 52 years believing her daughter died during childbirth at a hospital in Valencia in 1962. Sofia had been 17 years old, unmarried. Her family had sent her away to give birth in secret. When the hospital told her the baby died, Sofia returned home and never spoke of it again. She built a life. She worked as a teacher. She told no one about the pregnancy. For 5 decades, she carried the grief privately. And then a stranger appeared claiming to be the dead child, demanding reunion, asking questions Sofia had buried so deeply that unearthing them felt like dying a second time. Sofia's cousin told Laura, "She does not blame you, but she cannot do this. The baby she lost is dead to her. You are someone else. She cannot reconcile those two things." This happened hundreds of times. Birth mothers who refused contact. Stolen children who, upon learning the truth, wished they had never searched.
Adoptive families torn apart by revelations that one or both parents had known the adoption was illegal.
The psychological damage was immense. Therapists in Spain began specializing in what they called stolen baby syndrome. The symptoms: identity crisis, survivor's guilt, rage at adoptive parents, rage at biological parents, rage at the church, rage at Spain itself for allowing this to happen, and then refusing to punish anyone. Dr. Isabel Roca, a psychologist in Madrid who worked with over 300 stolen babies between 2010 and 2020, described the pattern. They come to me expecting reunion to heal them, but reunion often makes it worse. They meet their biological mother and realize they have nothing in common. Or they meet siblings they never knew existed and feel like an outsider. Or they discover their biological mother is sick, dying, and they are meeting her just in time to bury her. The fantasy of reunion is almost always better than the reality.
Have a good day at school, okay?
But some reunions worked.
Yes, Mom.
In 2016, a man named Antonio Ruiz found his biological mother, Pilar Fernandez, through the database. Antonio was 63. Pilar was 82. They met at a cafe in Seville. Pilar brought photographs of herself at 19, the age she had been when Antonio was born. She had saved them for 63 years, keeping a box hidden in her closet containing baby clothes she had knitted, never worn, waiting for a child she believed was dead. Antonio later described the meeting. She looked at me and said, "You have your father's eyes." I did not know I had a father. The adoption papers said I was abandoned, but she told me everything. His name was Miguel. He died in a factory accident 6 months before I was born. She was alone, pregnant, unmarried. Her family disowned her. She gave birth in a charity hospital. They told her I died. She believed them for 63 years,
And now here I was, alive, sitting across from her, and she just kept touching my face like she was afraid I would disappear again. They spent the next 4 years together before Pilar died in 2020. Antonio moved to Seville to be near her. He introduced her to his children, her grandchildren. She told them stories about Miguel, about the life she and Antonio might have had. For 4 years, they built something real. But Antonio also described the cost. My adoptive mother raised me. She loved me. She did not know I was stolen. When I told her I was searching for my biological mother, she was devastated. She thought I was rejecting her. We did not speak for a year. By the time we reconciled, she was already sick. She died 6 months after Pilar. I had 2 mothers. I loved them both. But finding one meant hurting the other. There was no way to avoid that. This is the impossible arithmetic of stolen lives. Every truth revealed creates new grief. Every reunion requires someone else to step back, to accept that the family they believed was whole was actually built on a lie. The Catholic Church, central to the entire operation, has never fully acknowledged its role. In 2013, the Spanish Bishops' Conference released a statement expressing regret for any suffering caused by individuals who may have acted improperly while claiming to represent Church. Notice the language. Individuals who may have acted improperly. Not priests who stole babies. Not a systematic program the Church facilitated for 50 years. The statement carefully avoided admitting institutional responsibility. Victims demanded the Church open its archives, parish records, orphanage logs, adoption files. The Church refused, citing privacy laws and religious confidentiality. Legal experts argued that privacy protections should not apply to crimes. The Church disagreed. As of 2025, the archives remain sealed. In 2017, Pope Francis visited Spain. Advocacy groups begged for an audience. They wanted him to acknowledge the Church's role. They wanted an apology. They wanted the archives opened. The Vatican declined. A spokesperson explained that the Pope's schedule was full and that matters of historical accountability were best handled by local bishops. The local bishops continued to deflect, pointing to the national government. The national government pointed to the courts. The courts pointed to the statute of limitations. No one accepted responsibility. Meanwhile, evidence continued surfacing. In 2019, journalists discovered documents in a Barcelona hospital showing that Dr. Vela's network extended far beyond Madrid. At least 40 hospitals participated.
hundreds of doctors and nurses, dozens of priests who facilitated payments and placements. One document, dated 1973, contained a price list. Healthy male infant, 300,000 pesetas. Healthy female infant, 250,000 pesetas. Twins, negotiable. The list was stamped with the seal of a prominent Madrid adoption agency run by nuns. When confronted with the document, the agency claimed it was a forgery. Independent forensic analysis confirmed it was authentic. The agency then claimed it was taken out of context. No further explanation was provided. The nuns who ran the agency in 1973 were all deceased.
Here are some blankets and a hygiene kit for your
The investigation stalled, again. By 2020, the momentum had abated. The media moved on. The government closed most active investigations. The church continued refusing access to archives. The victims, many now in their 70s and 80s, were running out of time. And then the pandemic hit. Spain went into lockdown. The DNA database office closed. Reunions stopped. Support groups could not meet. Many birth mothers and stolen children who had been searching died during the pandemic without ever finding answers. When the database reopened in 2021, submissions had dropped. Younger generations seemed less interested. The stolen children who cared most, those born in the 1950s and 60s, were aging out. Their biological mothers were dying. The window for reunion was closing. As of 2025, approximately 8,000 cases remain actively investigated. The rest have gone cold, not because the truth is unavailable, but because those who hold the truth, the church, the hospitals, the state, have chosen silence. And those seeking the truth are running out of time. So we return to the question that haunted Inés, the nurse who stayed silent for 23 years. Was exposing the truth worth the pain it caused? Years later, historians would debate whether Spain made the right choice. Some argue that the investigations, limited as they were, provided necessary acknowledgement, that creating the DNA database allowed thousands of families to reunite, that even without prosecutions, Spain confronted a dark chapter it had previously ignored, that forcing the issue further would have torn the country apart, destroyed the church's remaining credibility, and traumatized hundreds of thousands of people who were happier not knowing. They point to cases like Sofia Martinez, the mother who refused to meet Laura. They argue that truth is not always healing, that some wounds are better left closed, that the families built on stolen babies, however unethical their origin, are still real families with real love and real bonds. Destroying those bonds in the name of abstract justice, they claim, is cruelty disguised as righteousness. Others argue that Spain failed catastrophically,
That refusing to prosecute anyone sent a message that crimes committed by institutions are consequence-free. That sealing church archives protects perpetrators at the expense of victims. That the 298,000 people still searching for answers deserve more than a database and an apology. That truth and justice are not abstractions but necessities, and that a society unwilling to confront its past will inevitably repeat it. They point to cases like Antonio Ruiz, who found his mother and had 4 meaningful years with her before she died. They argue that denying people that chance, even if reunion is difficult, is denying them their fundamental right to know who they are. That the pain of truth is better than the comfort of lies. Both sides have a point. The stolen babies scandal reveals something uncomfortable about justice. We want to believe that truth heals, that exposure leads to accountability, that confronting the past makes the future better. But sometimes, truth just transfers pain from one group to another. Sometimes accountability is impossible because the guilty are dead or protected. Sometimes the past is so tangled with the present that pulling one thread unravels everything. Spain chose stability over justice. It acknowledged the crime without punishing the criminals. It opened a path to truth without forcing anyone to walk it. It allowed victims to search while protecting those who preferred not to be found. Was that cowardice or wisdom? In 2023, Inés, the nurse who documented the thefts in 1987, gave her final interview before her death at age 74. A journalist asked her if she regretted coming forward in 2011. She said, "I regret participating in the first place.
I regret staying silent for so long, but do I regret exposing it? I do not know. I helped some people find answers.
I also hurt people who were happier without those answers.
I destroyed some families. I reunited others. I do not think there was a right choice. I think there was only the choice I made, and I will die not knowing if it was the right one. She paused, then added, "But I will tell you this. The babies I helped steal in the 1980s are in their 40s now. Some of them have children of their own. And when those children ask where they came from, their parents have to lie, or tell a truth that will break their hearts. That cycle does not end until someone stops it. I tried to stop it. Maybe too late, maybe not enough, but I tried." Inez died 3 weeks after that interview. Her funeral was attended by 12 people. 6 were family. 6 were stolen babies she had helped identify. None of the adoptive families came.
Every day, the stack grows
The
higher.
San Ramon hospital where
And
she
every
worked
day,
still operates.
she knows these reports
It delivers
will likely
approximately
just gather
2,000
dust.
babies per year. On the 4th floor where the maternity ward used to be, there is now a small plaque. It reads, "In memory of the children taken from this place, may truth bring peace." The plaque does not name Eduardo Vela. It does not name the church. It does not name the state. It does not demand justice. It does not promise accountability. It simply acknowledges that something happened here, something terrible, and that some people are still searching for answers. That might be the most honest memorial Spain could build. If you had been in Inez's position, would you have exposed the network in 1987, knowing it would destroy thousands of families built on stolen children? Or would you have stayed silent, protecting those families at the cost of denying birth mothers the truth? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories about impossible choices that real people faced in moments when there were no good answers, make sure to subscribe.